My name is Mariella, and I come to this bar a few times a week. There were only about a dozen people in the bar today. Today's target sat alone, close enough to see the soccer game, but mostly looking at her hands. I started the conversation. Here to remember, or here to forget? He stopped looking at my hands and tilted his head up. Even though he was about my age, he had had a few rough years. I stood behind the chair across from him. I'll be reminiscing today. How about you? May I sit down? Help yourself. Thank you. I'm Mariella. I remember too. You first? I beg your pardon? You're the first Mariella I've ever met. Is that good or bad? Good. We couldn't stand it if you had the same name as that bitch. Did she take your name too? Nice, no, sorry, I'm Jean. Well, Jean, it sounds like you already have several. You're not going to drive, are you? Mariella, I've stopped planning. I'm not planning. It's not time to close yet, is it? No, honey. Let's talk about what you've been trying to remember. My kids. It's been a year since they left. What are you trying to remember? My husband. I lost him recently. Where did your children move to? I don't know. What's her name? You know, that bitch? The one who just left one day? Well, isn't that beaten up? I can't remember. I like you a lot, Jean. If you want to get lucky, how about walking me home? Me? Really? It's been so long. Let me settle accounts. Clutching our wings, we walked the 3 blocks to the house. All was quiet, as my daughter always seemed to do everything on her own. Newfound freedom has that effect on a college freshman. Jean was gentle with me. I gave him a nice warm-up before he excitedly pulled me onto the bed. It was incredible. After that, he fell asleep, and I just pulled the blanket over him. In the morning, I quietly closed the door and walked to the kitchen. All day long, I had been cluttering up the house doing laundry and cleaning. The house got too quiet, so I headed to the pub. Rocky, the guy behind the bar, knows me well, so I stopped to chat with him. Rocky was giving color commentary, and I was sipping a whiskey and water. He was here again, but a woman had just approached him and charmed him. I waited my turn, eavesdropping. A seasoned professional. I've seen you here before. May I join you? Sure, get in the saddle, missus. I'm Jean. Suzette, nice to meet you. She took his hand and he didn't dissuade her. Placing 2 empty plates on the table, Jean excused himself to the restroom. Rocky walked over and spoke to Suzette. She graciously withdrew, her bill being paid by me. When Jean came out and Suzette was gone, he barked at Rocky. Hey, boy, where'd she go? Someone called. She left a message for you. Said she wanted to thank you. He raised his mug. Cool. I waited 5 minutes before I squeezed my way over to his table. He noticed, but didn't say anything. I started with the standard, here to remember or here to forget. He looked away, then scanned me from head to toe. I realized he was mentally undressing me. To forget. And what is it you're trying to forget? The pain of finding out she had a lover. I never knew. There was no way I could live with her after that. Enough about me. Why are you here? Same as you, I guess. Trying to forget the pain. Just when you think it can't get any better, it all disappears in an instant. I'll buy. What do you prefer? Scottish stones. What's your name, sailor? Jean, do we know each other? There's something about you that I kind of recognize. Anything is possible, Jean. I may have been the one standing in front of you in the drugstore. Tell me more about your wife. I wish I could. I'm probably so angry and drunk that I don't remember much about her. That's fine then. She broke my heart. You know, Jean, there's no one waiting for me. Do you want to walk me home? He glowed like a happy teenager. Sure. Let me pay the bill, and then we'll hit the road. We hadn't been in the house 5 minutes before I was already leading him into the bedroom. It was incredible. Jean lovingly undressed me, and it was some of the hottest sex I could remember. He fell asleep afterward, and I just pulled the blanket over him. In the morning, I quietly closed the door and walked to the kitchen. My daughter Bonnie greeted me. Good morning, Mom. I take it you found him quickly. Yes, he was back at Clancy's pub. What mode was he in? Last night he said something about his wife taking his 2 kids and leaving. That's something new. Last night he was saying that his wife has a lover. He wasn't married before you, was he? Oh no, honey. We met in high school, went to college together, and got married shortly after we got our bachelor's degrees. So where does he get all this stuff from? He spends hours reading erotic stories on the internet. He gets sucked into them and becomes the main character. I have to figure out the best way to keep him in the house. I know I can't blame him. Gene has always tried to please me. If I hadn't told him I couldn't bake his birthday cake until I had flour, he wouldn't have gotten in the car. I told him it could wait, but he didn't care for it. When he didn't come back, I panicked. The crash site looked like he'd been hit broadside. After identifying him, I learned that he had been taken to Rose Memorial. A few minutes after arriving at the hospital, I learned that he had undergone surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. Gene's 40th birthday cake was never baked. He was in the hospital for 6 weeks. The prognosis was good. The downside was that he was virtually unable to memorize new things. His memory for past events was incomplete. On good days, I was his loving wife. Other days, I was some unknown caregiver. Each day was like a fingerprint. No two were alike. Epilogue. My daily routine is established. Doing chores around the house, and some days I go in search of Gene. He carries a cell phone with him, and I use the Find My Phone app to track him down. One morning, Bonnie greeted me with the words, "Good morning, Mom. How long can you stand it?" "For better and for worse, honey. I'll be by his side until one of us dies."